Hello, welcome to GabFest with the Yoga Lily. I'm here today to interview the amazing and talented and fun Pam Medina. And I'm going to read that she is a yogini devoted to helping others embody the spirit of oneness that pervades the universe. She has studied yoga for 30 years and has taught for nearly 20 years. She owns the Yoga Lily and formerly located in Clifton Park and now online and nomadic. As a creator of the Yoga Lily, a teacher training, she empowers her trainees to commune with the inner teacher who lives inside each of us. She is a sister, daughter, drummer, earth worshiper, and dog mom who has taught yoga abroad in ashrams, meditation centers, schools, and parks. She is over the moon with joy to introduce this area's first outdoor teacher training this year. Yay! Welcome, 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 Pam.
Thank you.
So this has been a really fun experience so far. We've been having a bunch of interviews, but I get to turn the tables and put you in the hot seat. And I think, we should start at the beginning. Like, how did you come to find yoga? And how did it all unfold?
Yeah. Well, I originally took my first 2 semesters of yoga at SUNY Potsdam. I had to take a gym class, and I thought I didn't want to take one. And the registrar lady that was working at the registrar office was like, "Well, why don't you do yoga? That's just breathing and stretching." And I'm like, I guess I could breathe and stretch, I showed up to those classes stoned, out of my mind, most times. And I would fall asleep during the yoga nidra, but there was a few times that I wasn't high, and I went I remember I refused to do sun salutations because they were just too much for me. I was so weak. I had never moved my body. And it was so painful for me to have to move do 12 positions.
Yeah.
It was like, no way. So, and I carried that theme into yoga studios for a long time as well, because I just was like, I'm not doing sun salutations. Um, and, but I had some pretty profound experiences in yoga nidra. And I think that that's where a lot of people find like that little sweet spot. So I had pretty much forgotten about yoga, until my 30th birthday. I was, I heaved my body. I was very, very out of shape and chain smoking cigarettes and weed and could hardly breathe. And I heaved my body up. I was nearly 300 pounds at the time, and I'm 5'2". That's kind of a small frame, and to roll my cigarette and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I thought to myself, like, if this is it, I may as well just kill myself, you know? Um, and I was serious. Like, I was in deep, deep depression. I had just left a 15-year relationship. Um, and, um, and I had another second relationship that I didn't really mourn the 15-year relationship that ended, and I jumped right into another relationship. And yeah, I was really depressed and had a horrible self-image. But I've always had a connection to spirit, and at that time I had actually gotten quite involved with indigenous spirituality and earth-based spirituality. And I had met a woman who was leading lodges and healing ceremonies. And but I so I sat on the edge of the bed with that cigarette, and I heard you know, first the voice to pray with my tobacco. So I did that. And then I heard, find one thing you love and do that. And I couldn't find anything that I loved, but I could find one thing that I had given me peace. And it was that one moment in Shavasana, that one time I showed up when I wasn't high. And the profound peace that I had experienced in Shavasana. And I said, that's it right there. That's the direction I need to go in. I just noticed my computer is losing charge.
Oh, okay.
So, but thanks.
Yeah.
So I was, wasn't making very much money. I was driving a cab at the time. And even though I had my degree, I didn't even feel like I was like worth having a real job. It was really, really a very depressing time in my life. But my mom had brought me to take yoga with Ann Davis over at the Yoga Nook in Glens Falls. And Kate had taken me over to do yoga at Daniel Lyon's yoga studio, Kundalini Yoga Studio, also in Glens Falls. And both of those women, for whatever reason, they just took me in and let me take do my yoga. And was like, pay me when you can thing, and I did. And I took it seriously. And so I was taking 4 yoga classes a week. I started taking 4 yoga classes a week. I just delved right into it. And I decided, and I went on a vision quest also, like that summer, the summer of my 30th birthday. And the message was that I needed to cut my dreadlocks so I could reach a larger audience. Quit smoking because I was about to get into a profession that wouldn't accept smoking. I couldn't understand that. I was like, what am I going to be, like a nurse or something? And I didn't know what the thing was. And to start taking care of my body, get really healthy and lose some weight. So I'm half my body weight that I was at that time. And I quit smoking and changed my diet. And I was always pretty much vegetarian, but I just wasn't a very healthy vegetarian. So I learned how to be a healthier vegetarian. And I started doing yoga every single day and going to those ladies' classes. I was the 4 days I went to class 4 days a week, and the other 3 I was practicing at home. So that's kind of like how I got into yoga.
So, and then you did your teacher training at Yogaville?
I did Yogaville,
Did you
Satchidananda Ashram in Virginia. So after, seeing this transformation, people were like, I want to learn whatever you did, and I couldn't have done any of that without yoga, not one bit, and so I talked to Ann Davis, who ran the Yoga Nook up until recently, here, and she's really kind of the grandmother of yoga in Glens Falls. And yeah, and she told me, go, this is where you should go, and I said, I'm so scared, I don't, I don't have a body like what most people think yogini is supposed to look like. And I still have, and I was I was very confused, I didn't really understand what yoga was still. And she said, just apply and talk to them. And I wrote to Satya Greenstone, who was my teacher trainer at Yogaville.
Yeah.
And I told her my fears, and she said, yoga is about love. Do you love people, Pam? Do you want to teach love? And I said, yeah, that's what I want to teach. Absolutely. So, so I went and it was amazing. It was a month-long intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were up at 5 a.m. to meditate and do our do our yoga asana hatha yoga class. Um and then we, at like after everything was said and done and we did our meditation and our um hatha class, we would have um breakfast and then it was lectures all day and then another meditation in the afternoon and another hatha yoga class in the afternoon and dinner and then more classes at night until 9 o'clock. So we were going from like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we had karma yoga deities kind of, like you were talking about earlier, where everybody was, caring for the studio after class, after our trainings.
Yeah.
So it was a very long day every single day. But I was in my, let's see, this was 2006. So it was 18 years ago
Wow.
that I took the training.
Yeah.
Um, but I had kind of started to teach before I even went to the training, which was a little bit more acceptable back then, 20 years ago, to teach. I think now most people expect you to, have a certificate and, have some professional training. But there was also not a yoga studio on every street corner, everywhere you turn. Like it's yoga has spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't that popular. It was very strange still, even just 20 years ago, to at least up in this area where we
I
live in upstate New York.
I agree. I remember it being in very small pockets and you talk to somebody about yoga and they'd be like, "What? What are you talking about?" So,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, it's very
Every-
common that people know exactly what you're saying when you know, mention anything or, drop the
Yeah.
name of a pose or something, people know. So yeah, so I started there and then I went back for to assist in the trainings for several years. Several summers in a row I went back um because at the time I was subbing um at a organization that cares for disabled adults, so I could come and go as I pleased. It gave me a lot of freedom and I loved it. Um and so I would go down to Yogaville and co-teach with the at the ashram. And then I went back for my gentle yoga teacher training, which also included restorative yoga and some yin aspects. And then I went back again for meditation yoga teacher training. Um, and then again for my 300 hour. So yeah, and
Wow.
I've done all my training there.
Amazing. And do you like still hear from people in that class or like that you took with the yoga teacher training a little
Yeah,
bit?
I talked to a few people here and there, every once in a while we'll have like a Facebook conversation. Um, but I think that it's hard to maintain those relationships, especially because you're being trained to go out into the world and then do something.
Yeah.
So, and then there's strong emphasis on on that, to make a life change or to start a class and to be an influence,
Yeah.
in the world, be a positive influence in the world in some way. So, I think that most people leave that teacher training and they're international, they come from all over the world to go to that. And it's so beautiful and it's such a beautiful location and really sacred land there. Um,
Yeah.
but then you leave and then you go and you open your yoga studio or you start a
People
class
come. Yeah,
place.
they're coming from all over, so they're dispersing back kind of to where they're.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they get involved. And
Um,
that's been one of the things about, being a full-time yoga teacher, is that when you're a full-time yoga teacher, you don't usually get to go to other people's events because
yeah,
you're so busy teaching at the prime times for
yeah,
yoga.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you completed your first yoga teacher training and or any of the other ones that you did, like what was the biggest takeaway from the training? Like what did you learn about yourself or how did you feel changed?
Well, I think that one of the biggest takeaways was that I was not crazy, that my feeling that there was more to life than um the contemporary way of living. I just always felt like um this drive to be really successful and to make a lot of money and to accumulate wealth and belongings and spaces and properties and like
Yeah.
eh, that was not fulfilling for me. Um and it just it's a necessity to a certain extent. But I just felt like I would just feel so empty if my whole life was focused in that way. And and so it was very life affirming for me to be in surrounded by a collective of people that felt the same way,
Mm,
you
yes.
know. Yeah. And so that was amazing. And that I could be good at something, like really good at
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you. I never really felt like I was good at anything, but when I started teaching yoga and I became very strong. And I don't even think I realized that I was good at teaching yoga until a few years ago when kind of was like, exploring other classes and exploring other things and going, wow, like I am really good at what I
I
do.
love it. Well, when you've been at it for so many years and you take someone else's class, I have to imagine that you kind of think, huh, that's an interesting way. Or, maybe there's a better way to say this. Get
Well,
some.
yeah, and a lot of people, they take the 200 hour and they don't go any further. They never, advance, or they don't take another training. Sometimes it's even just as simple as like taking a different 200 hour training. Sometimes people will do that, just
Yeah.
for to expand themselves, and people get locked into lineages and doing certain things. And there's a beauty to that too.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not my way. My way is like, all inclusive.
Yeah. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, whatever resonates, let's use it,
Mhm.
And I think that speaks to a lot of people because then they feel they can be included in whatever you're doing. So that's great. Um, okay, so how did becoming a teacher influence your daily life or alter your path?
Yeah. Well, I think there's that it's kind of two layers.
Yeah.
So the first thing was the perfectionism was a big thing for me. I um felt like, not knowing that I was good at something. I didn't know I was good yet, but the first like decade or more, I think I was trying to be perfect. I really felt like I needed to present like I had it all figured out and I had all the answers, and um that like, yoga was a, like becoming a yoga teacher has now made me, hover slightly above the earth when I walk it. Like,
Am I better than all of you? I'm just
right.
kidding.
Yeah. Well, not that I thought that I was
Oh
better,
no, but yeah.
but that I felt like I needed to present myself as being better. And from what I know, like my deepest truth, because I know that, is that when people are presenting like they're better than others, they're truth is that they don't believe they're better than anybody else, and they're trying so desperately to get that validation from the outside that they will present to be, it'll appear that they're arrogant, and what they really are is insecure, you know?
To be seen. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I had a bit of a struggle for a long time. And then, that layer started to come off,
Yeah.
and, um, I started to, you know, really understand what it means to be a teacher. And, so one of my indigenous teachers, Shanti Listening Deer, had said to me, um, you know, Pam, you're a leader. And she said, but I want to tell you something. If you want to be the best leader, and I wanted to be the best. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat anytime anybody tells me how to be the best. She goes, if you want to be the best leader, the best kind of leader, make leaders. So that's when I decided yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, you know, it's not enough for me anymore to be a yogini and to lead yoga classes. But and again, I didn't know I was good, but I knew I wanted to lead, and I knew I wanted to be good.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, you know, that's my goal now, is to make more leaders. So yeah, did I answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah. How
Yeah.
did it influence your life to become a,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
How
And
did it altered your path?
I think too, it makes me, being a yoga teacher makes me more conscious that like who I am in the world and who I am when nobody's looking at me needs to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
really powerful, you know, and beautiful.
and it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard because, and so, something that I had to kind of, deal with is like admitting that I'm not perfect and that I don't get everything right. And, um, that mistakes happen, and, I make people mad. I hurt people's feelings. I lose my temper. I break my diet sometimes, sometimes I oversleep, sometimes I fall asleep without brushing my teeth. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. Most
No.
of the time I brush my teeth, especially if I'm gonna be with people, like especially in the morning, But like I let myself, I used to never do that. And then I realized, like, you know what? If I just like ground myself and let myself be down to earth and just be like, let myself off the hook sometimes, then I can let other people off the hook, because you don't have to show up to a yoga class already knowing yoga. That's, that's
Right.
one thing.
Exactly.
Um,
I love
and you
that.
don't, so I think that was a big deal. And then, um, this practicing yoga. And when I first graduated, I was teaching here and there and everywhere. I was nomadic, like kind of like I am now. And then I took a break and I went on sabbatical to India. And I remember sitting like on the Ganges River in like deep prayer, just asking for guidance about what I was supposed to do with, this is before I started my teacher training, was, what I was supposed to do. And the message was to open a yoga studio. I needed to have one hub where I could build a community. And we did that for 10 years. We built a beautiful yoga community for 10 years. So Um, and I'm so grateful for my husband. I just have to plug that in here because, I remember laying in bed with him. We had just gotten married, and, we were talking about, the yoga studio and my dream. And I said to him, I did the calculations of how long it would take me to save up X amount of money at the job that I have now, um, before I can open a yoga studio. So, it's going to take me like 12 years. I won't be able to open a yoga studio for another 12 years. And he took his retirement money to help me open that that first yoga studio.
Wow.
Like,
That's amazing.
so much love. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, um,
And belief. Like, oh
and
my gosh,
yeah,
you need to
faith
be
in
doing
me.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. He
Hmm.
saw I was good. He knew I was good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Governor.
He was coming to my classes at the time. So, yeah.
So he knew it was up. So he was in it.
He did. And then he took the yoga teacher training too. The yoga instructor. So,
So can you speak a little bit about your teaching experiences? Are there like some fulfilling teaching
oh my
experiences
gosh.
or like funny or hard? Like,
So many.
any challenges? Like, what are some
Um,
top two or three picks?
I'll tell you a funny one first, because I think that a lot of yoga teachers might relate to this. I was teaching gas relieving pose, when you're laying on your back and you're hugging your knees, you're squeezing, and I just let out the biggest gas relieving pose.
Hey, it
It
worked.
was
I
so
mean,
audible. Yeah. Everybody heard. It was so embarrassing. Um, you know, and so that stands out in my mind, and that probably happened, 17 years ago.
that's
So,
hilarious. But I'm sure it made people feel like, okay, well, the pose worked, if that's the name of the pose.
yeah.
And B, like if I have to do it, then if it happens, it's normal, So
Yeah. And what always tell my students when I teach that is, if it farts, it worked, So, and that always makes people laugh. And I love making people laugh on the mat too. I do. I like to make them laugh, but I try not to do it at points in the class when we're starting to get very quiet and meditative. Like when I introduce humor, I try to do that in the earlier sets where we're more dynamic, we're warming up the body and we're wringing out the tension and the toxins so that we can get to that quiet place.
yeah.
So I love, love, love. I mean, I love teaching, um, helping people learn how to adapt. Um, I have this powerful moment of teaching this woman how to breathe.
Mm.
She had never taken a full deep breath in her life. She had a private class with me, and I taught her how to breathe. And from that, so much came, so much healing, so much trauma that she was going through at the time, had come out, and she had shared with me, um, some terrible things that her husband had done to her, and she just was crying, and the breath shifts us so much when we have enough oxygen to support our system. It allows us to feel our emotions.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, but I think like my most favorite um moments of teaching is like when I'm in the yoga teacher training, because we get to go so deep. Like, um, we're not we take a pose, we unpack the pose, the anatomy of it and what it's good for, who should avoid it, and then we're like getting into our bodies, and I get to get my hands on people. I love that part where, obviously only when people are okay with it. And for the most part, when people come to a yoga teacher training, they usually are very okay with that. They want that, and a lot of times they crave it because one of the things I found with Hatha yogis is that we love the body. We like to be in our body. We like to experience our body. These are the same people that love to, maybe not always at first, but as they keep deepening their experience of yoga, they learn to love things like dancing and touch and massage and making love and, massaging your skin and self-care and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but, so there's that, like the physical, I love going deeper in that physical way
Yeah.
with my clients, and then helping them to find how to adapt the pose, how to change the pose so that it works for them, because maybe you've had hip surgery, or you have a knee injury, or a broken ankle, or you're pregnant, or you're, you have whiplash or whatever. So, or, carpal tunnel, so there's ways to find like how to adapt those poses and get creative, and then let the students get creative too with their own solutions. So, and you don't get to spend that much time on a pose in any other setting, you know. With yin yoga, yeah, we're spending some time there, and in any yoga class you're going to spend some, but not like that, not like this, where we spend an hour or more on the posture, like really understanding it. And then we practice teaching it. So then there's this emotional component that I love, because I get a chance to then move around the room, and in this upcoming summer it'll be the pavilion that I'm moving around, and and maybe people might spread out into the more open, spaces under the trees and whatnot. But I can move around, and I can listen to, what you're doing, what your words are, and finding ways to empower people. That's amazing. Like I'm not afraid to tell you, like, you need to correct this.
Yeah.
But I'm also know how, and I know how to say, like the way that you said this is precisely, beautifully said, so eloquent. But you need to change this because this could be confusing.
Yeah.
So it's all about like really making people feel empowered about getting out there and teaching. So, and then we do like sharing circles. So,
Yeah. It was one of the ones I wanted to ask you was to kind of go live an overview of like a day in the life of teacher training, like what you can expect maybe in a day, or in a month later, like if there's any changes, like the kinds of
oh
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, every training is going to be different. I don't know how many years later people might be watching this training, but the current one that I'm offering in 2024, it's a mixture. So we actually start online with the philosophy and the anatomy. And so we start to kind of have a framework for what to go on. And so we'll have a lot of the reading done during May and June. And then those classes, those online classes, continue on Monday, Wednesday nights. It's only 2.5 hours. And then we start the embodiment at the park. So we'll be at Monroe Lake State Park for this particular training, which is beautiful. It's also where I married my wonderful, generous husband. Um, and we'll be, so the in-person part of that will involve a yoga class, which may or may not be open to the public. We'll see how much space there is, and it left in the training. And then after the formal 90-minute yoga class, we'll probably have a little break and an opportunity for people to have like a little bit of a snack or something, or get a drink, use the bathroom. And then we will have some like an asana lab where we're looking at the asana means pose or to be. So we'll look at each pose. We kind of start through the progression, and the class the poses that we learn are the very classical hatha yoga poses. So you get a really strong foundation on the very classical poses. And you learn 52 of them. And so we'll learn the postures, and then and depending on, you know, what we're working on, we'll have this, or we'll have, if we're not doing postures, we might be like, you know, looking at pranayama, the breath work, or the very beautiful practice of going through the 5 layers of being the koshas through yoga nidra, and then meditation. So you'll learn all of those during we meet 14 days in person. So a lot of this is happening like beforehand, and then we have those 14 days in person. So it's from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., except graduation night will be until from 8 to 8. So so after our asana lab, we'll have a break, a nice long break, probably a 90-minute break where you can, you know, go have your lunch, go for a walk, go for a swim. The lake is right there, or a paddle. And then we'll meet back for practice teaching. And so, and then we'll be practicing, and we'll be taking turns practicing segments of the class. So, let's see. Yeah, so that's pretty much the day, and the day of, like, in person. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely.
We'll wrap up around 5, we'll clean up, you know, and yeah. Yeah, and then people can stay if they want to bring their dinner and they want to go have, you know, enjoy the sunset on the lake or whatnot. They could certainly do that.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
walking meditations too, like some guided walking meditations, and some experiential practices. Yeah, as well.
Mix it up a little bit there and there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, and can you maybe talk about money and running your yoga studio, and what kind of like money exchange, like how does that um work for you, and how does it,
Yeah.
yeah, like what's, what kind of
So yeah,
activity?
like learning, first of all, that my classes were worth something was really hard.
Yeah.
I was undercharging when I first opened my yoga studio, and when I was teaching nomadically at the beginning, it was really undercharging because I had this like mentality that, like everybody else that tries to sell anything, that like if you can like liquidate something, it's going to go faster or better or whatever. I did a lot of a lot of free stuff. And I still do some free stuff, but um uh I was really doing a lot of free stuff, and I was undercharging. And I remember standing in my yoga studio, and it's a very powerful moment. And I was thinking I might have to close the studio because I wasn't making enough money. And I was looking outside my window, and I saw a Jaguar pull up into the parking lot, and out came a woman that was headed to my class, lovely woman that was so worthy of that Jaguar. Super sexy older lady. And then another lady parked next to her in a BMW. And I looked at my car, it was red with one white door because I couldn't afford to repair it correctly.
Yeah.
And I thought, I think I'm undercharging. Like these women can afford this. They can afford this. So, I raised my prices
Yeah.
by like, I think I was charging $10 at that time and I raised them to 15. Um, and I lost some people, but I gained a whole lot more.
Isn't that insane how like the energy exchange, when it evens out, it flows, differently.
Yeah, it
And
was wild.
yeah.
Um, and then I had to do that again a few years later. I raised it again from 15 to 18. Um, and yeah, it was amazing. What I learned, and I talked a little bit about this earlier with Susan Kuda, is like when she did the donation studio in Saratoga, she learned like it wasn't having a donation studio wasn't of value to that particular population. Now, someplace else it might be, but knowing where you're, what town you live in and what the township values, um, you know, makes a huge difference,
Yeah.
My thought was I wanted to make yoga accessible to everyone as well, you know, and I thought if I had low prices, yoga would be more accessible. And it turns out that um, I was in kind of I opened the studio in an how do you say it? Upperly mobile,
Or
upper
upper
middle
middle
class,
class. I don't know.
upper
Yeah.
middle class, area. Um, and um, and I chose that location just because there wasn't a yoga studio, not for any particular reason, just because there was no yoga studio.
Yeah.
And of course the month I opened up, two more yoga studios opened.
Of course.
Um, but that didn't make a difference. I still did well and I still filled like every class. Um, so but it wasn't until I raised my prices. Um, and the thing is that what was preventing people from my yoga classes from being accessible wasn't the price. It really was the location, right? Because people that have the time and the energy and the desire
Yeah.
to practice yoga um in that area can get there, first of all, because it was kind of off the beaten path. Like it wasn't, there was no transit or anything like that. So I really, you need to know your community. Um, but I mean, I did well for many years. I did pretty well. It was a big discussion when um the pandemic hit and we decided to close the studio because we wanted to become foster parents and
Mhm.
try that on and see what parenting was like. And, we knew that we were going to take a big financial hit when, I stopped teaching. Um, and, it's time to go back to work now. And
Yeah,
not,
well, there's, an opportunity now with the internet and the advent of COVID is offering a space, cyberly, but and I think that there's probably some pros and cons to that. In person to me felt, you know, there's a difference, but I don't think that there's enough to say that it can't be done. Like I think that your authenticity and your guidance was still very clear and concise. So yeah. And then
mm,
people have options to take it online or go in person, I think those are like cool that those are offered.
yeah. And I mean, I've been on, I've been teaching online now since 2019. So, or
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. So 4 years,
Yeah.
so I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
But the portion of the so Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. I teach a 90-minute yoga class that is, asana, breath work, deep relaxation, meditation. But when we're meeting in the evenings for the yoga teacher training portion, of my offerings, we'll be doing philosophy and anatomy. So it's going to be more like a presentation style. There'll be slides, there'll be my face, videos, things like that to support what I'm teaching you. So yeah, which I find actually to be easier to learn because you're not sitting in a crowd trying to see the board, trying to make out my handwriting, all that. So it's actually in some ways like that part of the learning is improved.
Yes. Yes. It's just, yeah, agree. Okay, so we'll
And it
kind of,
makes it accessible for people that are working full-time. It's just a couple of hours in the evening so they can show up, after work and, sit in front of the computer in the comfort of their own home.
yeah.
And we meet 14 days and so they can take those days off. Most people have to, if you're working, full-time, most people can get 2 weeks off. And some people will take it and they're not working full-time, or they're retired, they work part-time, or they're kind of in transition. I get a lot of people that, kind of like in a transition period in their life.
Yeah, yoga's great for that. For real. So in an effort to kind of wrap it up a little bit, so we hit the timing that you would like, if you could tell any upcoming, yoga teacher who's on the fence about taking the course to become certified, what would you tell them?
I'd say go with your gut, and you do not need to be perfect to take this training or become a yoga teacher. The world does not need one more perfect appearing person to teach yoga. What we need is people that are real and honest and loving. Yeah. So, and trust yourself.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And powerful. So
And call me if you have questions, So, and my number is 518-944-7090. That's 518.
I was like, can you put the number up?
518-944-7090.
That's awesome.
You can check it out on the website, theyogalily.com, under the trainings tab. I'm on Facebook, the Yoga Lily.
You're on Instagram.
Not really. I'm really kind of still don't understand Instagram.
Nobody can message you there though, is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just, you are one with all that is, whether you know it or not. That, this whole planet and everything on it, that includes you, is one living, breathing, very much alive life force, and I want you to know that. So I think that is the most important thing that I could ever teach another human being.
Yeah, I would definitely say oneness is has been a huge undercurrent to all of your teaching. So yeah, that's perfectly encapsulated. So lovely. Okay. Is there anything else you want to share?
Anything else you want to say? I have other offerings and workshops that people can check out too if they're not interested in yoga teacher training. And I have an online website that has hundreds of yoga classes. And I work on a sliding scale. And a lot of people don't know what that means. So basically I give you like 3 price points that you can choose from, and you can choose the higher, the middle, or the lower price point. And I want you to, again, honor yourself, go with your gut, what you can afford. And And I offer work study. I do a lot of work study for people, because that was offered for me, you know. So, and hmm, I think that's it. Anything I'm leaving out? I don't know.
I mean, you've covered a whole bunch, and it's been really wonderful and thrilling to hear everything that has gotten you where you are. So thank you for sharing so much of yourself and continuing to share yourself with others, because you are a leader and can make leaders.
And so can you know, everybody can do that. That's
Yeah.
what, yeah. Namaste.
Namaste.